Okay. Uh, Today's lecture is about how do we let the word heal us. And this is sort of a follow-up of the previous lecture in which I talked about the helicopter flying over the word, trying to find our spot in it based on a resonance with the story, and going to that story and seeing what the divine has to say to us through that story for our own healing. And we will get to that. Before we do, though, next slide, please. I was going to talk about stage theory, but I noticed there were other stage theories in the week. And this is a little bit similar to what Jim was talking about, but this is nascent, so it's certainly not developed, but I see a repeating pattern where the 7 days of creation are sort of the sum of what's going to happen. And then all of Genesis can be seen that same pattern, where the darknesses are the chapters before Abram comes and God is talking to people, and we'll remember those are actually mythological stories, not history. And I won't go through it all, but I was going to talk to you about this and then focus in on Genesis as a way of moving through these states of mind, and they're really activities that we do to grow further. And next slide, please. So it's really a type of fractal where it's repeating, but it's getting wider and wider, and the first iteration is enveloped within the next one. So that's what I'm not going to talk about. Next slide, please. What I am going to talk about is how to heal, using the word to make a difference in our lives. And I asked someone just a few minutes ago, which of these sort of speaks to you, which is a problem that you feel like maybe would be yours, and they said none of them. And I have a suspicion that might be pretty true with all the wise people in this room. A lot of you are also elders, so you've been working for decades. So if none of these seem like an issue that you might want to work out, you can always just pick one at random. So before we move on to the actual exercise, so this will be an exercise which will be done in small groups. So for those of you online, may be a little bit difficult, but hopefully you will get the grasp of how to do it in your own home, in your own time. So to set the stage for what we're going to do, I would request that you, building on Gardner's idea of empathy being what our rational mind really is, and to use that for understanding other people, for this exercise, you want to take that and bring it to the word, though, so that you are divesting yourself of as much of your selfhood as you can and letting that story become you. You are letting that story speak right into your mind and heart, and also to understand that the word, as God's mouthpiece, is doing the same thing for you, that it is listening to you and fully open to who you are, no matter where you are in life, no matter how you're feeling. And next slide, please. And this will be using the secret language as we heard about in that song. People talk about correspondences as a science sometimes. And as Roz, you were saying, it's not a stiff equation like math. It's flexible. And part of it is what we bring to the word when we're looking at its inner meaning, this language. I would call it a language. it will be received different. In a way, I think there's as many internal meanings of the word as there are minds to interact with it, that we take it in and it speaks to our state. So, and that's the way it should be, which really means arguing about truth doesn't make any sense, right? We share what we've seen. So, here are some things that you can do. This is more of an intellectual way of looking at correspondences or this language. You look at the form of an object that you're investigating. So let's take a tree. A tree reaches up into the sky and it branches, right? So that's telling us something about what it might represent in our lives. What in our mind reaches up and tries to catch light? Our thoughts, right? Our mind reaches up, branches out into many thoughts, trying to know truth, know the divine. And then the inherent functioning of the object itself, so it's the internal functioning. So the tree draws sap from the earth, it turns it into sap, the nutrients in the water, and sends it upwards to become useful, whereas the dirt itself isn't that useful. So that is also telling us something about the correspondence of a tree. What in us takes what is dirt and in and of itself maybe not so appealing and turns it into something useful or living. Well, that's also a function of our mind, right? It's a different form of the rational, we might say, or for lack of a better term, where we can look at all the problems that we've been through and all the negative states of mind that we've experienced, egotistical states of mind where we're self-serving, and turn that dirt into something useful for us, something that serves good. And then that leads pretty much to the next one, which is the function it has in its environment. So a tree offers fruit. It offers shade and protection to animals. It does a whole lot, right? So what in us does that? It's, the way we serve others in the spiritual community, meaning the whole human race. There's fruit. We give, concrete, sweet things that people can feel invigorated by, and we also can reach our arms out and in a protective way and shade them from the problems they're feeling. And then the mood or a feel of a thing. So a tree is very beautiful. People love trees automatically. So it's going to be something good. And this would be something you might want to meditate on, where you just meditate gazing at a tree and seeing what it's saying to you on a more visceral level. And then there's clues in the word. Blessed is the one who confides in or trusts in the Lord. They shall be as a tree, right? So, okay, this is talking about human life. And then proper names. So an example of proper names is Genesis. So Jacob is struggling away for Laban, right? And he is doing this so he can marry Rachel. So Laban is constantly changing the rules on him and never giving him his dues, including he thinks he's marrying Rachel after 7 years of labor, and he actually is marrying Leah in disguise. So, but I guess he gets what he gave earlier because he deceived his father in a similar way. But anyways, Laban's name means white, right, which is a symbol of purity. And Rachel means you, which is a symbol of innocence. So if we think in our own lives, what might this be? When we're in a stage of our spiritual growth and we earnestly want to serve God, we labor to get purity. And we think, gotta get pure, and we're doing our best, and it never happens, right? We never can get pure. And we're worshiping a false god. And in that very story, they have to bury their false gods when they stop laboring after trying to achieve purity. Laban, the boss that's always deceiving him. And that's when he gets Rachel, right? Or when Rachel bears a son is when you start to realize, I can't be pure, right? The speckled sheep. I can't be squeaky clean. It's just not going to happen. I'm a human being. All I can do is the best I can, which is Joseph's name. May he add, or he will add. So we know our place. I can only do so much. So the names in the stories paint a picture of what it's telling us. It's teaching us it's okay to be imperfect, and all you can do is the best you can, and purity is not the goal. The goal is loving human relationships, which incidentally, Jacob, after this occurs, and he wrestles with the angel gives him this blessing of permanent lameness. He dislocates his hip socket, and he's lame the rest of his life. So it's kind of like, oh yeah, I'm going to be imperfect the rest of my life. And then he meets his brother, who he had been estranged from, who had wanted to kill him for all the bad things he did to him. And he says, I see the God when I saw you, it was as if I saw God's face. And that's a really special moment, because that's when we can start to really see the God in other people, when we give up on this previous pursuit. So those are some ways to get at the internal sense. Next slide, please. And there's another way. So this is a much easier way in some respects, and it's less of an intellectual process. We read here, and I believe there's at least one other place that says a similar thing. Secrets of Heaven 1492, the inner meaning is such that the actual emotion implicit in the words is what makes up the inner meaning. So if we can get into the character's place with full empathy, then the word will speak to us automatically. And that's more along the lines of what we're going to try today. So let's go back up 2 slides to those circles. So I have asked some people to help me lead, and what I want you to do is look at these various struggles that we go through, and think about which one would you like to meet the word about. So we're going to go to the word and see what it has to say about each of these things. And we can't do them all, so just pick one that seems like it is what you need to be meeting the word about. And after you've done that, I'm going to ask all the leaders that I asked to help me to come forward. Okay. And Julie will be stuck in a rut. So it's not what I meant. So if you feel like stuck in a rut is what you need to work on, please meet Julie. Okay, and then you just find a corner of the room and you can set up the chairs. Lost, blind. Now, some of these don't seem to fit together, right? But you may be learning from different characters in the same story. So if you feel like you're lost or just you don't know what's going on, blind, or you struggle with pride, entitlement, and judgment, then you can be with.
How many do you want to be in a small group?
It depends. Well, as many or as few as feel called to this. Does anyone feel called to this one?
Which one is
If you're feeling blind, like you don't know what's going on in life, or judgmental or prideful. That's the one you want. Okay. Does anyone feel like doubt is the issue that they want to talk about? Oh, yeah. Gotta pick one. Doubt? Okay, you can be doubt. Oh, Gardner? Okay, you can go with Colgate. Is anyone feeling unworthy or insignificant? Anyone else? I might wait here, Sage. I might.
How many minutes are we saying?
It's going to be about 15. 15, yeah. Okay. Is that, Martha, you coming to be with Sage? Okay, great. Anyone feeling drained or a loss of innocence, just like hopelessness is actually a main part of this? Okay. Would you like to be hopeless with my dad? Anyone feeling defensive or angry? Defensive or angry? No? Yes? Okay. Oh. Diseased? Anyone feeling diseased? Spiritually diseased? Anyone feeling numb or joyless? Okay. I think your name is Paul. Are you a minister? Would you be willing to do this one? All you'll have to do is read through it twice. I will explain it. So if you're feeling joyless, come with Paul. Okay, that's all the leaders we have. So if you haven't found an assignment, if nothing has spoken to you, then you can just join a random group. And you flames, go ahead and join in. You can just join in randomly. Okay, so this is what's going to happen next. Actually, it will be a... All right, has everybody settled into a group yet? Okay, I think we're there. So this is what's going to happen next. I'm going to lead a short exercise to sort of induce a meditative state of mind. And then group leaders, you will read the story so that they hear what they're going to be getting into with empathy. You'll give them a short amount of time, maybe 30 seconds, a minute, to just sort of let it soak in. And then you'll read it through pretty slowly, letting it soak in. And the others in the group will live out the character that called to them the first reading. You will put yourself into their shoes as deeply as possible, feeling what they feel, hearing, seeing what they see, and understanding that this very story is the same hand touching your lives as the hand that touched the physical body of the people who were healed. This story is here to heal you of one of these things, and it's represented in the physical healing. Okay, so I invite you to close your eyes and to get comfortable and to scan your body and see if there is any part of your body that is feeling discomfort. If it is, send a little love to it. Send your appreciation for all the work it has done for you through the years and all the good it's given you, and just wish it well. And you can even remember that this part of your body is connected to an entire area of heaven, and that the angels are there sending their love to you too. And now I invite you to visualize or feel that there is a flow, a stream of water bubbling through you from head to foot, just continuous flow of water. And this is cleansing you. This is drawing your thoughts down away from any worries or concerns that you may be experiencing, any thoughts of the morrow or regrets of the past or plans or work. Just let that flow down with this water that's flowing from the beyond the crown of your head and on out below the soles of your feet. And while this is happening, draw in your breath slowly and deeply, and just hold it for the slightest moment and let it go. And as you do that, begin to experience as if you're drawing in another flow of water that joins into the primary flow that's going down your spine and out. And as you reach the crest of your breath, it is reaching up through your head and back down to your abdomen, and it's creating a little bit of a wave there, and then as you breathe out, that water continues down with the other flow out to the bottom of your feet. And just sit with that exercise for a little bit. And with your next breath, I want you to allow your mind to follow this water out. Follow it down out of your own body, and it enters into a very still pool of water, smooth as glass. And visualize a leaf floating upon that very still water. And let that be your mind, resting on the still waters of God's peace and love. And now, small group leaders, please read through your miracle for your listeners once through, pause, and then another time slowly. And everyone else, please stay in that meditation with your eyes closed and listening.
read through it once. They're meditating. Now
You
again,
read it through again, and
but
the first time is for them to get familiar with it, and then they will have the equipment, the knowledge they need to meditate through it deeply.
we're going to do this just one more time.
One more time.
And then how do we end?
And then you have a small group discussion about what they heard God speaking. And when you are ready, you can start to share with one another about what you can share with one another about what the. Okay. And when you are ready, you can lead a small group discussion.
Yeah, I'll pick up on that. Because, you know, another story.
I was just saying, that's my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, then he walks away. I get stuck in sometimes it's like, but, well, I could get it angry. Then after the guys just, I talk to them, I tell them so much. Because it's the Saturday. Yeah, it's like, hey, you want to be my
All right, we'll have just a few more minutes of the small group discussion and then we'll reconvene. Okay, if you can wrap it up and then come back as a group. Thank you, Susanna. I got it. We're just waiting for the group in back. As always, the kids that sit in the back of the room are cutting up. Now, go ahead and finish, Colgate. Go ahead and finish. Okay. So this is what I noticed watching this take place is these are some pretty heavy topics, but everybody was laughing. Almost every, what it looked like to me is people were enjoying the experience, which was good to hear. Did anyone find it helpful? I'm curious just to see if this method does anything positive for how many people. Okay. I've used this to great effect, and then we'll open up into the sharing, but I just, something I omitted was just a few examples. Some time ago, I felt as if a superior of mine was basically persecuting me. Whether they were or not, I don't know, but that's what it felt like. And so I did this. Where in the Bible is this found? And of course, Saul throwing spears at David is an example. And that came to me, and I said, okay, how did David deal with this? Well, first of all, he had that same anguish that I was feeling, and he would not raise a hand against Saul. He would not abandon allegiance. But he also protected himself. He went out into the wilderness. So those are great lessons, right? I don't have to make myself vulnerable to attacks, but I also am not going to attack back. And that's a kind of forgiveness. Another example was, there was an individual whose lifestyle was, it looked like they were bordering on like Satanism, and I just didn't want to have anything to do with this person, but I was feeling called to, and I felt like Jonah, I don't want to go and be with this person. I don't want to be the one who has to, just because the egregious nature of what they had done. But, and I realized why Jonah didn't want to do that, because he felt so harmed by that. So, if there's someone in our life who has so harmed us because Nineveh had done terrible things to Israel that we don't want to forgive them, then Jonah's our guy. He's where we go and find out what to do. Okay, so I would love to hear anything that anyone would like to share about the experience of going through a story of healing like this. Did it work, or did it sort of work, or did it leave you flat? It's all good. Julie.
Always the loudmouth. I love this story. We did the Pool of Bethesda. I've done sermons on this for my group. And it's just amazing to me how different people share the way they see this story. And there are so many questions. The more you read the Bible, there's more questions. Like, where did this man come from? Did he lay there for 38 years? And are we getting really stuck in a certain place? So, yeah, this was a great exercise. Thank you.
Of course, thank you. Jesse.
I was with Julie, and so we were reading this story of this man who was stuck, and Jesus comes along and basically says, "Get up! You know, you're not going to be paralyzed anymore." And I had a couple experiences. One was experiencing what it would feel like to just let it all go, which I felt like a physical feeling of almost taking like a weighted cloak off, like my shoulders, that would feel, you know, you'd feel so light after that. We were also talking about how there was this response to the man getting up. First of all, there were people who were saying, well, you're not allowed to carry your mat on the Sabbath, you know, so it's kind of like this obstacle that people are putting in front of you even though you want to change. And the fact that, you know, he didn't seem to be asking for help, but he just kind of was told to do it. But it felt like you've got to do it yourself, and you've got to ignore the obstacles, or move beyond the obstacles, and just make that change, which is the hard part, of course.
Yeah. Thank you, Jesse. Ross.
We had some really wonderful sharing in our group. But as far as the healing thing, I didn't have any new healing, but identifying with the character and, you know, processing it and meditating on it led me to remember a time of healing and really feel the impact of something that had happened in the past.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so in our group, apparently, you know, this was the story. Oh, Dan. My name is Daniel Mark Geyer, and I've been... Okay, anyways. So it was the Defensive Angry Group, and surprisingly enough, there were only two of us, along with Roz, who was guiding us, and both of us wanted to cut off Roz's ear, because it was the story of Judas betraying Christ, and the defender of Jesus was, you know, defensive, right? That's defender. And he was trying to cut off the guy's ear, and then Jesus rebuked him by saying, you know, put away the sword. And Roz was the guy who got her ear cut off. So that was fascinating. But like Roz, I didn't know where to go after that, right? So I totally identify with that character, that I'm going to defend it. And then afterwards, you're like, oh, dummy. He just told us to turn the other cheek. Like last week, I was there. I heard it. So what? Wow. And so you feel defensive. You feel, I'm going to, you know, lash out. And the instant you do, then he puts his hand on you and says, hey, wait a minute. Didn't you read that passage that says you shouldn't do it? Okay. And so that's where I am. So I haven't transitioned beyond, I'm getting better. Earlier in my life, I would, you know, lash out a lot. And be defensive a lot. And it's getting better, not great. And I guess it's just a process.
Dan, I really appreciate your honesty, and we're all edified and strengthened by that. Thank you.
And Roz recommended that we retire. That might help. I'm Nancy Little.
Retire, stop working. It's much better when you're not working.
This is Trevor. I was in the despair and helpless group. Thanks for making me cry. We did a miracle about faith healing, and it reminded me that Jesus came to each of the people according to what their faith was. The woman who touched the garments believed that if she touched his garments, so she was healed. And the child that he was going to heal, the father believed that Jesus had to actually touch the child with his hands. And in another parable, the person said, just say the word and they'll be healed. So Jesus comes to us where our faith is.
Yeah, thank you. Katie. No, doesn't matter. Oh, okay. Katie, this will be the last one.
We didn't quite talk about this in our group. It went its own way, but I now see from the passage we had, which was healing the blind man on the Sabbath, there's a lot of sinner talk of, what did the blind child, what did their family or him do to be born blind, right? What sin caused that? They were sinners, so that made them blind. And then later they're like, well, Jesus is a sinner, he's healing on the Sabbath. And in both cases, Jesus said, no, it wasn't sin that caused your blindness. And then later on also, then the blind man who's been given sight, the young man says, I don't think he's a sinner. I just know that I was blind and now I see. So since we were talking about judgment, that's kind of, we talked about the two sides of the judgment we feel from others and the judgment we give sometimes. And
Thank you. All right, well, thank you everyone I know this is not the typical format of a lecture. I appreciate you participating in it and seeing where it went. And I hope you had a good time. Just to clean them up, yeah.